Hey everyone, welcome back to AskReddit Reads. Today's topic is, what's an oh shit moment where you realize you've been doing something wrong for years? Let's get into it. When I was 5, a Pizza Hut employee told me that the powder on the breadsticks was called fairy dust. Ordered extra fairy dust on my breadsticks until I was around 14 when an employee said, "Do you mean garlic salt?" It still devastates me to realize how obtuse I was. It wasn't very long, but when I was learning to drive, my dad was explaining the rule of thumb regarding a safe distance to be behind the car in front of you. I thought it meant to hold your thumb up, and if your thumb didn't cover the entire car, then you were too close to it. When he caught me doing that, he asked me what I was doing. When I explained, he burst out laughing, then considered it and concluded it wasn't a bad idea, but perhaps a bit distracting. We bought a nice liquor cabinet. We got it delivered and noticed it was a bit shorter than we thought. No biggie. 3 years later, we're moving, lift up cabinet, and these beautiful, ornate, screw-on legs wrapped in tape and bubble wrap fall off the bottom. Looks so much better now. Reminds me of when my mom bought us new sofa. About 6 months later, she's hoovering under the cushions when the base fabric pulls back to reveal some sort of metal and a mattress? Turns out we had a sofa bed. Made my friend sleep on the floor with a sofa bed right there. Until last week, when my father-in-law would make a phone call on his very basic non-touchscreen flip phone, he would open the menu, scroll to the phone icon, open it, hit the soft key for contacts, scroll to the person he wanted to call, press OK, then press the soft key to call. When he mentioned how he preferred his landline because he could just dial the number, I said, "Humor me. Just dial the number and hit the talk button." I'd never seen a man so simultaneously grateful and embarrassed. A couple years ago, I was trying to open some toothpaste and had to break the seal of the tube. I used to look for something like a nail to break it. Then one day, I looked at the pointy end of the cap and thought, what if I could use that to break it? And oh shit, did it fit and broke it effortlessly. And so did every other tube product I had in the house and their respective cap. My mind was blown. I was cooking with my boyfriend a month or so ago, and I was confused when he mentioned he hated opening tubes of tomato puree, because I just find it satisfying. I then proceeded to stare at him in disbelief when he started trying to peel the tiny foil seal off the end of the tube. I just slowly reached out, picked the screw top cap off the counter, and showed him the pointy bit. Since the dawn of time, I would pick up the silverware and utensils out of the tray in the dishwasher and put them away in their drawers, then go back and pick up more out of the dishwasher. Then one day, I saw my wife lift the tray out of the dishwasher and I legit stood there with my mouth open. I always thought eggplant tasted itchy, like itchy was a flavor, like sour or salty. Fed some to my baby and his face turned red whenever the eggplant touched, and I realized we're both just allergic to eggplant. The itchy isn't a flavor. I lived in a house for 6 years with a bathroom with no shelf or cupboard to put toiletries into. I was very disappointed and ended up using a windowsill that was way too small to fit everything. Anyway, one day we had a friend come over and he asked why we didn't have anything in our bathroom cupboard. I was confused, so he showed me. It turns out that the mirror I had been using for 6 years has a hidden compartment behind it. It was a mirrored door to a mounted cupboard on the wall. I was astonished and I immediately moved all my stuff from the window into the new space. My friend was baffled that I never figured out that there was a space behind the mirror. There was an obvious gap between it and the wall, but somehow I failed to notice. No one really ever told you you don't need to buy shoes with 2 finger space in front of your toes after your feet stop growing. I had been buying an entire size too big until about age 23. 23. One day in college, I decided to buy a pair of Merrell barefoot type shoes, and after reading the size guide, bam, mind blown. It's a terribly obvious mistake. I, 29 female, like to blame on being an only child, but really, I'm just an effing moron. I had this problem up until 25. Never really thought about it. I was always a size 10, that's what my mom bought me in high school. Why would it be any different now? Only thing is, I stopped growing at 14, never had another growth spurt. As guys, we were always told you'll keep growing until late teens, early 20s for some. Yeah, that didn't happen for me. Luckily, I was buying a pair of nice boots and the clerk was like, "Dude, there's no way you're a size 10, you're barely a size 9. I was so happy once the blisters I've always dealt with went away. Well, this was a few years ago. I was the director of IT for a large company. I was given a new cell phone and told to set up my voicemail. I don't know that when I recorded my name, it would be played to whomever I leave a voicemail for. Well, the name I recorded was Duder84 Corporate IT God. It worked for 4 years until someone in the hallway referred to me as Corporate IT God. I was so embarrassed. I grew up without a mom. She passed when I was 6. I was afraid to ask my dad how to put a tampon in. One day, I made a comment about age 18 to some friends that tampons hang out too far from your vajingo and made me feel like I waddled when I walk. My friend asked me how I put them in. I thought it would get stuck up there and wasn't inserting it far enough. Did it wrong for about 5 years. My friends still make fun of me for it. I can't help but use my dead mom card. But looking back, it's pretty common sense how to shove it up there. Edit. For all those asking, I didn't really feel comfortable with my body, so I'm not sure I really understood what the directions were asking. For others asking, my dad was a really good dad. Obviously, he made some general mistakes, as all parents do. But as a substitute mother, he did a great job. He taught me how to shave my legs, funny voices and all, and he was a Girl Scout troop leader for almost 10 years. He tried to figure out how to French braid, and he did comb my nasty-ass rat hair on a daily basis. My eldest child had a penchant from blowing out of his diapers. We tried everything, but multiple times a week, we had to pull that poo-filled onesie over his head and inevitably give our now super-duper poo-covered infant a bath. Around when I was pregnant with our second, a post went viral about how infant onesies are designed to be broad at the shoulders so you can pull them down and off instead of over the head. Poor kid would have had so many fewer poo in the hair incidents had I known that then. Not wrong for years, but I work help desk, and we use a specific, terrible piece of software for our support system, IBM Notes. It turns out that for the first 9 months I had been working there, it wasn't set up properly, so I wasn't sending any emails from it at all. No notifications that the ticket went to me, no responses from me, no close notifications, nothing. Someone noticed this, took a look, and fixed the setting. I immediately sent over 1,000 emails to everyone in the company. Not mine, but my dad was spelling his name wrong his whole life. He's 51. His name is Jeffrey, and he's been spelling it like that since he'd learned how to spell his name. A few months ago, my mom pulled out his birth certificate, and we all learned it's actually spelled Jeffrey, Jefffery. Not sure if he spells it correctly now, but it's definitely an oh shit moment for him. Grandfather thought his name was Harvey his whole life. Got his birth certificate at 65, and it's Harmon. I used to fill the kettle by the spout. My parents have always done it that way. I thought the center part was mainly for decoration, but not functional. I don't know why I never questioned this. One day, I bought a new tea kettle, and my husband was like, "What the F? What is inside this?" And with great ease, opened the center to pull out a manual with instructions and whatnot. I was drinking dirty paper water for like 2 weeks. When I first got a debit card and would go out to eat at restaurants with friends, I would leave a cash tip on the table. When I got the receipt to put how much I was paying, I would write down how much money I left on the table. For at least 6 months, I gave double tips to every waitress I had. I did this to a pizza guy once. I gave him a cash tip, and when he gave me the receipt to sign, I put down how much cash tip I gave him. He told me, "Whoa, you're giving me more?" I was like, "Is that not how it works?" He said he'd correct it for me once he got back to the store. I felt pretty embarrassed. My family had a cup next to the bathroom sink in case you needed to rinse your mouth after brushing your teeth, or maybe get a quick drink of water in the middle of the night. My grandma had the same cup at her house. I used it for years whenever I was thirsty. One day, she saw me doing this and said, "Don't use that cup. That's where grandma puts her teeth." Living in a foreign country where I was actively learning the language, social cues go a long way when learning a language on the spot. That being said, someone once said a phrase to me while serving a hot dish, which I assumed as meaning, "excuse me." After going through crowds and lines replicating the same phrase in an attempt to be respectful of those around me, I abruptly found out that the phrase actually meant enjoy. Hindsight completely makes sense. The odd looks I would get by saying enjoy while squeezing past people all of a sudden made sense. My wife and I have this ceiling fan / light in our bedroom in the house we moved in 2 years ago. It has a remote control for the fan and lights. About a year and a half ago, the lights suddenly stopped working. The fan works well, and we didn't have a ton of money, so we've just lived with the lamps in our room, always being frustrated with how damn dark it is. I was scrolling through some other thread on AskReddit, TIFU, a couple weeks ago, and the top post was a guy talking about how his light stopped working years ago, and then he found out that it was just dimmed, which you do by holding down the button on the remote. It sounded so much like our fan, I went and tried it. Dimmed. As a boy, I had an unconventional method of masturbating. It would require a diagram to get across all its subtleties, but let's just say that it required 2 hands, was not intuitive, and simulated no known sex act. It was suboptimal. After a year or so of convulsive self-abuse, one of the older kids made the international jerk-off hand gesture towards me. My jaw dropped. I instantly knew that I had been doing it wrong all this time. It was so simple, so obvious, way quieter, and way more effective. I tried it that night and never looked back. The dude changed my life. Thank you, Chris Eastman. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. It'll be greatly appreciated. And if you want to visit the original thread, I'll link it in the description. But yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one.